Hey everyone, welcome to another video. In this one, we're going to talk about everything that I read in January. You'll notice some of these books are from, like they're on my February TBR. I filmed that video a little bit early in January. I filmed it like over a week ago, so I've actually read a couple of the books that were on that TBR, but that doesn't matter. The first set of books that I read in January were these History of the Third Reich by Richard J. Evans. I do have another video. I've actually got two videos about these. I've got one about the first book in the series, and then I've got one sort of covering all three of them. So I won't babble on about those at all. I'll put a link in the description or in one of those card things up above. The next book that I read in January was The Five Giants, a biography of the welfare state by Nicholas Timmins. This book it's written by a journalist in the UK, and it's effectively telling the story of how like social policy, welfare policy, education policy, health policy in the UK sort of evolved from the 1940s, like after the war, to the modern day. And the way it's kind of structured, it starts off with like some key people at the beginning, and then it sort of shows you what like the Labour Party did and then what the Conservatives did as they sort of switched power. This is very in-depth. I'm going to be honest, a lot of it was kind of going over my head just because it got so nitty-gritty into the... It reminded me of the book by Walter Isaacson called Six Friends in the World They Made, which is about the US, effectively about the US State Department in the sort of post-war era, and how US foreign policy and national security policy evolved based on the actions of these six people that he focuses on. And what you end up getting is a lot of like, this person said this, and then that person disagreed and wanted this, and then this person chimed in with this thing, and then they went to this meeting, and then this thing happened. And it becomes kind of repetitive like that. In terms of being like reference material, if like you were doing some sort of project on this, or you really wanted to like look up something, this is excellent. For me, I don't have like sort of a ton of knowledge in this area, and so it was tough going, and I kind of had to like skim sections where I just didn't know what was going on anymore, so I just skimmed to like within the chapters it sort of breaks it up into like welfare policy, housing policy, health policy, education policy. So like if I sort of really didn't know what was going on at all, I would just skip to like the next section, so I go from social policy to education policy and start reading the education stuff. But saying that, this isn't a bad book. It's just I didn't know enough to kind of really fully understand and appreciate it. And the next book I read, it's actually on my Kindle. I'll flash the cover somewhere. It was Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy by John le Carré. Obviously, since John le Carré sadly died recently, I've wanted to read his books for a while, but when he died, I was like, I should get in and read them. And I have previously tried to listen to the audiobook of Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, which isn't a good idea. I don't think le Carré's writing translates all that well to the audiobook format. It's a very unique style of writing. Several times I've heard, actually in recent weeks, I imagine just because of his recent passing, I've heard people describe his writing style as he uses the least amount of words possible to make his point. And I think that's true. I think that he uses very few words. You don't get a ton of description. Like, I don't even know if it's fair to say modern books, but sort of the books that I have been used to, the fiction books that I've been used to reading, have been much more, like you get a lot more description. It's kind of, the scenes are a lot slower paced, and so with Le Carré you have to really focus, and there's a lot that's left unsaid that you kind of have to put the pieces together. Saying that, it's very, very good. Like, it's obvious why Le Carré was so loved, and I do want to go on and read more of his stuff and maybe get like sort of more comfortable with his writing style. I think that once like I sort of get how he writes more, maybe the next book I read where from the start I'm kind of more in the zone, the like I'll just pick up more of what he's saying. But the book was very, very good. There is obviously the movie that recently came out with Gary Oldman and a bunch of other big name actors that aren't coming to my head now. So yes, very well worth the read. But yeah, it's tough. And I'm not used to reading fiction at all. I read a lot of non-fiction, and so the switch to fiction was interesting. And then I think Le Carré has a very unique fiction writing style. And then the last book that's on the list is Lenin by Victor Sebastian. The subtitle is The Man, the Dictator, and the Master of Terror. Now, first off, this is just a beautiful, beautiful edition. I'll just hold that up. So I had a friend telling me about how this is some particular art style. I don't know too much about that. I haven't read really anything on Lenin. The only like sort of time I've come across Lenin has been in reading about the Russian Revolution in a broader sense. And the other times I have come across it is reading about the First World War, where Lenin plays a role, obviously, at the end when he goes to Russia and causes the revolution to happen. I've never read a biography of Lenin himself, and so this was my first one. When I was choosing one to get, I looked at this one, and then there's a couple of other really famous ones. There's a series of biographies of the three main players, Trotsky, Stalin, and Lenin, by Robert Service. There's this one, this one's fairly new. I think this one came out in 2017 or 2018. So I think it was 2017, like sort of for the centenary. And then there is one that was a little bit older, written by Dmitry Volkogonov, which is Volkogonov was a Soviet in the latter area of the Soviet Union. I forget exactly what position he held, but he was within sort of the party. And so I decided to steer clear of that one just because I imagine it's got some biases and stuff that I'm not equipped to deal with just yet. And so I chose this one. I don't want to say I was disappointed in it. It was very, very good, but I felt like it could have done with an extra 150 pages. Like saying that it runs to 500, and that's why I think this is a 600, 700 page story to tell. The first part is excellent. The stuff about his childhood, about his relationship with his mother and his sisters, and Nadia, that is all excellent, and I really, really enjoyed reading that stuff. The stuff about his early time in Revolutionary Circle, that I was getting this just awesome feeling of what Russia was like during the 1890s and the revolutionary culture that was growing up in Russia at the time. But then when Lenin leaves Russia, and goes into exile. And his time in Siberia was also excellent. But then when he leaves Russia after that, I feel like the story becomes the story of the Russian Revolution more so than a story of Lenin. And now there's two ways that there's two reasons for this that I can think of. One is the story of Lenin is the story of the Russian Revolution, and this is totally on point. The second is that towards the end he loses focus and starts talking more about the revolution itself than talking about Lenin. The sense that I got, or the sense that I didn't get, is if you take Lenin out of the story, what happens? I don't feel like I can answer that question here. In some senses, you can see him, especially in the parts about his revolutionary ideas and how he developed them and inspired people and organized and stuff. I can see how he was important. But once you get to 1914 really, he becomes, at least according to what this was saying, he becomes less important. And I don't know if that's correct. So I do think I need to read another couple of books on Lenin and see how accurate that picture was. The book is very, very readable. You can get through it very quickly. I find stuff on Russia to be kind of heavy going, like the words and the names and those sorts of things can sometimes trip me up. But this sort of makes it work really, really well. So definitely a good one to pick up. Definitely a good one to have on your shelf. I think it's a beautiful edition. But yeah, so that's what I read in January. Obviously, a couple of these were from my February CBR, but I've now sort of substituted some stuff in. So yeah, that's what I read. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you have any thoughts on any of the books, please leave them in the comments below. And if you have any suggestions for me in terms of other things I can read around these topics, I'd love to hear them also in the comments. So thank you for watching. Subscribe if you'd like to see more videos from me, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.